My father had a vineyard, a few grapes, and an orchard, and we restored that. Started planting some of the newer cold climate varieties there on the farm. And one thing led to another, and eventually we had a few thousand vines. This building came available, and so we decided to put the grapes in the building together, and it's a winery. We're a little different than others. We're probably a little larger scale. We're obviously doing a lot of farming. We have a lot of farmland. We're running 4 vineyards. We also have an orchard and produce some apples. We grow pumpkins, we grow garlic. So we're pretty diverse in the agricultural aspects of it. In the tasting room here, we're obviously selling wine by the bottle, wine by the glass. We have a bistro menu so people can get food here. We also have a couple of event halls. The biggest one allows us to do 400 people for a meal. We have another hall for about 100. So we'll do about 60 weddings a year. We'll entertain about 20,000 wedding guests through here. So that keeps us pretty busy, and a lot of stuff to clean every week. I think when you talk about wine culture in Minnesota, it obviously has its roots in agriculture. Growing grapes is farming, without a doubt. You've got a wine culture in Minnesota that didn't exist. You know, my father thought that a bottle of Gallo wine at Christmas was wine consumption. I think now with the millennial wine drinker, you have people that really do enjoy exploring a pretty big range of wines and wineries, of course. And so that's changed, and wine consumption statistically is, you know, up every year. So it's a different industry than it used to be. Being in Hutchinson is the greatest joy in my life. I mean, it's a great place. I grew up here. You know, if we have to go to the township, it's all the guys I rode the bus with to school. It's a pretty friendly community for doing business in. We think when the winery is doing it right, this winery belongs to Hutchinson, not to us. And we enjoy that. My family comes from farming. My wife, who's also from Hutchinson, comes from farming. She is the 4th generation on her farm. And so the families have farmed for many years, settled out here. And, you know, we grew up locally and, you know, seen the changes where those farms were originally dairy and had a lot of diversity and you know, kind of drifted into the monoculture of corn this year, soybeans next year. And you know, we're back out here sort of diversifying that and saying there's more crops to grow and there's more profitable crops to grow than corn. Grapes are worth a whole lot more per acre than corn is. What I like about growing grapes is the tending. I have a caretaker's soul, and grapes are a lot like children. They have a lot of enthusiasm and they're going every which direction, and they need help to find the cordant, the structure, you know, get that fruit zone going where you're really growing the perfect grape. And it's kind of fun. You know, the seasonality of farming is, you know, life itself. You move with the seasons, things change with the seasons, very satisfying. The art of winemaking is, firstly, it's a very disciplined science. You're really getting in tune with a process that's based on bacteria, yeast, and it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. The art of it is really playing with it and its taste, its aroma. It's where the wine's going, and you want the wine to be a living thing all the way into the glass. And that's a great deal of fun. And we do a little bit more than what would be traditional. We are obviously making lots of grape wine, but we also make some fruit wines. We do a honey crisp and cranberry blend that's very nice. We do a cranberry wine that with white turkey meat at Thanksgiving is just to die for. We do some cooking wines where we do fermented garlic wine, which is a cooking wine, and we do a roasted pepper wine, which is once again a cooking wine. There's lots of Minnesota wines that do pretty well even nationally or internationally in competitions. And so it's a good industry. And you know, it's an extension of sustainable farming. A lot of people with farming backgrounds have added this to their income stream. And there's certainly a lot of interest. You see a lot of wine tourists that, you know, are heading out from the cities, and they'll stop at 2-3 wineries a day and wander around, and kind of everyone's different. Every winery has a story. How do we develop wine recipes? Well, you do it through experimentation, documentation, refinement. So a lot of the wines we've made, like garlic wine, we've made it for many years. We've tried many different varieties of garlic, and we've tried different processes, and every year you try and refine a little further and make sure that that wine is going somewhere good, and you're learning as you go. Why call it the Crow River Winery? Well, we're obviously out here in the Crow River watershed. And the Crow River watershed actually has its own microclimate. It has a gravel, you know, base in the soil stuff. So, and it's also runs through Hutchinson. It runs through my wife's farm. So Crow River is part of our lives. And out here, it's kind of like Acme. There's lots of businesses. They're called Crow River Auto Glass, Crow River Stationery. And so we thought it'd be fun to build the brand out of that. So we just put the Crow into everything and on everything, and it's kind of a good brand. Better than Mike's Wine Shop. The fire pits, we have a couple of things we do during the week. On Wednesdays, we do yoga night out here, so that's people with their yoga mats, their yoga instructor. And then Thursdays is cigar night, and that's a fire and a bunch of farmers sitting around smoking cigars and talk about how they're not making any money farming. We'll have trebuchets that come out, and what it allows someone to do is to sign up to fire a trebuchet for 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes time, it's who's gotten the furthest pitch. I mean, you got to do this. Pumpkins, trebuchets, it's a boy thing. You gotta do it. For us, this is a family business, and so we'd like to see the whole thing continue as a family business, and we'd hope that our children someday will maybe take up the craft and continue where we've started, and we can only hope that our grandchildren will keep the farms and keep going generation after generation.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflections Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.